Hello learners, and welcome to our lesson today of solving linear and exponential equations, where today we are going to be focusing more on the practice and application questions. So let's get right to our lesson. So we are going to be doing a few practice applications on solving those equations, linear and exponential. Solve for the following unknown values. So number one there we can see is a linear equation, and how are we going to solve for that? We are going to be using our additive and multiplicative inverses to solve for these equations. We have there 5x plus 4 is equals to 19. Remember, it is a number multiplied by 5 and 4 was added to that product, and the result was 19. So if I have a 5x and I've added 4, I am going to apply now the additive inverse of 4, which is adding a negative 4. Because a positive 4, when I add a negative 4 to that, the answer is 0. And remember, our equation is like a scale. So what I do on one side of the equal sign, I must do the same thing on the other side of the equal sign so that my equation can balance. So since as well I've added a negative 4 on one side, I am going to have to add a negative 4 on the other side as well. Now a 4 plus a negative 4 is 0. That means that leaves us with just the 5x. Now on the other side I have 19 plus a negative 4. Now remember, adding a negative number is the same as subtracting the the additive inverse of that number. So 19 plus 4 is plus negative 4 is the same as 19 minus 4, which is going to give us a 15. Now I have a number multiplied by 5, which is equals to 15. You might already be thinking of that number, but let's do it using the multiplicative inverse. That means I am going to take the 5x and I am going to multiply with 1/5, because 5 multiplied by 1/5 is 1, because 1/5 is the multiplicative inverse of 5. Now what I do on one side, I must now go do on the other side as well. So what is 5x multiplied by 1/5? Well, on the left hand side, we are left there with just the x. And on the right hand side, we have 15 multiplied by 1/5. That is 15, or is the same as 15 divided by 5, which is going to give us just the 3 as our answer. So that means that this 3 was multiplied by 5, and after it was multiplied by 5, 4 was added onto the product, and then the answer was 19. Let's look at the next one there. Number 2 is an exponential equation. Now we have two powers that are equal to each other. So this means that whatever is on the left is exactly the same as whatever is on the right. Now since as well we have one power on the left, one power on the right, that means that these powers are equal to each other. But what's interesting there is that those powers have the same base. So what does that mean for us? Because they are equal and they have the same base, this means that the exponents are equal. So from that equation, we can conclude that that means that m is equals to a negative 3. And this is only because of the bases are the same. Yes, the bases are the same and the powers are equal to each other. Let's look at the next one, which is 6x plus 1 is equal to 2x plus 9. Now we have unknowns on both sides of the equation. The nice thing is that it is the same unknown. So us using the same letter to represent this number that we don't know means it is the same number. So how are we going to solve for that? Now the fastest way is to make sure that the unknown numbers are on one side of the equation. How are we going to do that? So on one side I do have a 6x plus 1, and on the other side I have a 2x plus 9. So how are we going to move the unknowns to one side? So I am deciding to take this 2x and to take it away from the right hand side. So I'm going to apply the additive inverse of a positive 2x. The additive inverse of a positive 2x is a negative 2x. And what I do on one side of the equal sign, I need to go and do on the other side of the equal sign. Now 2x minus 2x, when we're looking at the right hand side, is going to be 0, and that just leaves me with the 9. And on the left-hand side there, I have now 6x plus 1 minus 2x. Now I'm going to add the ones that are the same, or the ones that are like terms. So these are the ones that have x. So this is going to be now my 6x minus 2x, and that is going to give me a 4x. Then we still have that plus 1 there. So now I have 4x plus 1 is equals to a 9. So which one do I have to get rid of next? That is that negative 1. How do I do that? I'm going to add its additive inverse, which is a negative 1. And what I do on one side, I have to go do on the other side as well. So even on the right-hand side, I've added a negative 1. So this is going to leave me with 4x on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I have a 9 plus a negative 1 that is going to give me an 8. So now we are going to say this is a certain number multiplied by 4, and the answer is 8. How do I get to that 4? I'm going to multiply with the multiplicative inverse. That is multiplying with 1/4. And what I do on one side, I must go and do on the other side as well. 4 multiplied by 1/4, it's just the x. And 8 multiplied by 1/4, which is the same as 8 divided by 4. That is going to give us an answer of 2. Let's go now and solve the next one. So now we have a fraction here. So we have 5x plus 13. These are all divided by 2, and the answer is a negative 1. So we are going to start with the multiplicative inverse of this divided by 2. Now this divided by 2 is 1/2. We know that. So for us to make sure that we solve our equation properly, we are going to take that half and we are going to divide by the, we are going to multiply by the multiplicative inverse. And the multiplicative inverse of 1/2 is 2. So what I do on one side, I must go do on the other side as well. So we know that the half, when we multiply it by 2, that is going to give us 1. Now we are left with 5x plus 13. And on the right-hand side, it's a negative 1 multiplied by 2. That is going to give us a negative 2. Then we are going to use the additive inverse of 13, and that is a negative 13. What I do on one side, I must go do on the other side as well. Then we are going to be left with 5x, and on the right-hand side, we have a negative 2 plus a negative 13. That is going to give us a negative answer, which is a negative 15. Then we are going to multiply by the multiplicative inverse of 5, which is 1/5. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And 5 multiplied by 1/5 is 1, and our answer on the right-hand side is going to be a negative 3. The next one here, we are still solving for the unknown values. We have 3 minus 2x is equals to 9. So let's get the additive inverse of a positive 3. So the additive inverse of a positive 3 is a negative 3. So I'm going to add a negative 3 on both sides. We are now left with, because 3 plus a negative 3 is 0, we are now left with a negative 2x on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side I have 9 plus negative 3, that is a 6. So now we have to work with the multiplicative inverse of a negative 2, and that is a negative 1/2, or 1/2. We are going to do the same thing on the right-hand side, where we are going to multiply with a negative 1/2. A negative 2 multiplied by a negative 1/2, that is going to give us just 1, and that leaves us with just 1x. Then we have there a 6 multiplied by negative 1/2. That is going to give us a negative 3 as our answer. Let's move on to number 6. We have 2 exponent x, and this is equals to 1/16. Now the first thing we are going to do when we are working with exponents is to change everything to its exponent form. Now we have 1/16 is the same as 1 divided by 2 exponent 4. Now, using our exponent laws, we are now going to, because remember, we want them to be the same base. So if I'm going to make them the same base, I'm going to move this denominator to become a numerator. But remember now, the exponent sign must change. The exponent was a positive 4, it is now a negative 4. But now the bases are the same, which is what we wanted. The powers are equal and the bases are the same. So this means that, our x is equal to negative 4, just like that. Let's quickly do the last one there before we go to our ad break. So for number 7, we have there 3 multiplied by x plus 1 in brackets, and that is equals to 15. So when we have brackets, the easiest way is just to distribute the brackets. So 3 multiplied by x is going to be there our 3x, and 3 multiplied by a positive 1. Remember, in the bracket we are adding, so we're going to continue with that adding, and 3 multiplied by 1 is going to be a 3. And that is 15. Now we have a normal equation that we are used to without the brackets. So then that is going to be us using the additive inverse of 3, which is a negative 3. And we are going to add this negative 3 to both sides. And we are going to be left with 3x is equals to, that's 15, plus a negative 3, that will leave me with 12. Then we are going to apply the multiplicative inverse of 3, that is 1/3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 1/3, and that is going to give us, on the left-hand side, we are going to have the x, because 3 multiplied by 1/3 is 1, and on the right-hand side, I have 12 multiplied by 1/3, which is the same as 12 divided by 3, and that gives us an answer of 4. And that's the unknown value in our equation. Let's quickly go to an ad break, and then we'll see you just now.